As someone who loved the Evil Dead remake and Don't Breathe, I was extremely excited by the news of Fede Alvarez directing a new Alien movie. So, does it live up to that high bar that those trailers also established? I'd definitely say so, and I think Alien Romulus's quality is even more impressive, considering that it manages to stay fresh despite there already being multiple movies with similar settings and premises. Every set piece within Alien Romulus comes off as being fun and original, just off of how they're presented and written. I don't really want to go into examples because that would spoil the scenes, but one of the main scenes shown in the trailer is this room with water, and a bunch of facehuggers get released into it. This is an extremely captivating horror scene that fuses together Jaws and Alien, as the facehuggers are obscured in the water. Then the characters stuck in there have to fight for their lives, as they're constantly getting surprise attacked by the facehuggers. So besides the original setting and how that changes the horror dynamic of the facehuggers, there's also another new dynamic where our characters are actually fighting back against them. Normally in prior movies, the facehuggers would show up and instantly KO who they were hunting, but the fact that the characters here put up a fight allows the suspense and tension of the scene to be sustained over a much longer duration. This in turn also infuses the scene with more action, and the beginning of the scene still has a strong horror hook. So these original set pieces are mostly sustained throughout the movie and keep a consistent freshness that imbues this movie with originality. Talking vaguely about it, there's another scene in particular that channels the Don't Breathe style of suspense. And I do wish it was longer, especially since it was intercut with another scene, along with some other scenes creatively utilizing certain mechanics like gravity to create some cool set pieces. But yeah, there's a striking amount of originality despite the overall setting not being that original. However, there are still some things that happen that may annoy you in terms of how the characters overcome certain points of conflict. I can't go into detail about it since it would be spoilery. So to me, that whole aspect was one of my favorites, and the other was definitely the cinematography and general atmosphere. If you were blown away by the trailer footage as I was, then this movie will definitely be a treat. I will say, I think they used the best shots in the trailers, but the film still had a strong, consistent visual identity with outstanding lighting and coloring. I'm a really big fan of silhouette photography and the way they light certain scenes with almost blinding amounts of lights that just eclipse the subject in the frame felt almost claustrophobic in a way. The production design and sets are also fucking incredible. The run-down, dilapidated, retro-futuristic interiors were constantly gushing with so much detail that I just wanted to give the production designer a big hug. This world, because of the setting, felt so grungy and gritty, and kind of reminded me of Blade Runner in a way. Every set felt thick with fog, which in turn made the setting feel even more claustrophobic, as the light rays caught the air particulates. Purely phenomenal from a set design and cinematography standpoint. Like, those aspects on their own, I feel like should earn the movie a decently high score, and I'm surprised how some critics really dislike this movie. Also, I found Alien Romulus to be thematically really interesting for what they established through some of their world building. The movie opens on this pollution-stricken mining planet that never receives sunlight because of dense black clouds that constantly enshroud the entire planet. Our main character is stuck here, forced to work for Weyland-Yutani, and it's this oppressive capitalist hellscape in which the rich corporations force this poor population to work into perpetuity. That alone I thought was pretty interesting, and it makes me want to know more about this universe in which humans have colonized other planets. But yet, the long, toxic tendrils of late-stage capitalism reach even the edges of the universe. Unfortunately, that's mostly all we get since we spend the rest of our time on the space station, which is fine. Then probably the biggest aspect that everyone will be talking about is the last 20-ish minutes. From what I've heard, some people are pretty divisive about it, but I actually loved what they did in the ending. Given that the Alien franchise has been around for so long, I generally respect if the filmmakers take risks that also don't compromise the franchise. As an example, Alien Covenant, a movie that's mostly panned by fans, took some massive risks with reforming the origin of the xenomorphs. However, that compromised the pre-established origin of the xenomorphs, where they've been around for a very long time and have been fighting the Predator predators. What Fede Alvarez does in Alien Romulus, though, I think is extremely bold in a very interesting direction, but it doesn't drastically compromise or retcon what comes before. Unless if I'm blatantly missing something and I'm in the wrong, because there's a lot of Alien lore. Now, on a technicality, I think it was kind of done before, but I don't want to dive into details because that would be spoilers. So if you're worried about this movie being generic in any way and the writers playing it safe, then I promise that the ending will definitely remedy that. It also kind of unlocks another subgenre of horror, but again, I don't want to classify it because I don't want to give away too much. So with all these massive shining positives, along with the general movie being well written, having a great pace, having excellent directing, and a mostly satisfying level of bloody violence, there were some flaws that dragged the movie down in my opinion. The major one is kind of a common horror pitfall in which you don't end up caring about most of the characters. I honestly only cared about Andy, which may seem ironic because he's the android, but the movie does do a lot in trying to imbue him with sympathy. They kind of give him a bit of the Detroit Become Human treatment where the main character treats the android as a human, and that in turn makes the audience deeply care about his survival. The writers kind of turn Andy into this embodiment of innocence, and they even give this android an arc of sorts, which was pretty surprising. Everything surrounding Andy I found to be captivating, and the nuances and details of David Johnson's performance is a standout in the cast. Although, I might be a little biased because I am currently watching Industry, and his character is great in that show as well. So since the primary heart and emotion of the movie centers around Andy, that in turn kind of eclipsed the main character, Rain. She's still pretty good, and Kaylee Spaney delivers a great performance. I just wish there was a bit more to her, outside of predominantly caring for Andy. She felt a little flat because of this, and I tend to expect a bit more when it comes to the main character. And the rest of the characters were kind of just there, but at the end of the day, it's really hard to make a bunch of likable characters without turning them into character tropes. Another thing that bugged me that probably won't bother as many people is that, towards the third act especially, there's a cascading effect of dumb moments that happen. Whether that be moments of plot armor, characters acting irrationally or being dumb, or the writers ignoring certain basic physics for set pieces to even work. But again, this usually has a varying level of how much it bothers certain people. I wish I can list examples, but since most of this happens in the last act of the movie, that would be too spoilery. Then, one more minor thing that has been sending some people into a fit of rage is the aspect of fan service. To me, it wasn't bad enough to compromise my entire rating. When you see one of the major fan service moments in the elevator shaft, you'll probably roll your eyes, although everyone in my theater really liked that moment. But yeah, as an overall movie, I feel like a perfect analogy or comparison is if you saw Evil Dead Rise and enjoyed that movie, then I think Alien Romulus is very similar in that it does enough that's new while also feeling recognizable. If you want it to be drastically different from what has come before, then you might feel underwhelmed, but to me, the set pieces were creative enough to make the general points of conflict fun and interesting. For the future of the franchise though, I definitely hope that if they were to continue making movies and/or shows, they get really creative with the premises and settings. Like, I don't know what more you can do in a space station or ship that hasn't been done before. At a certain point, the conflict and obstacles just start to repeat themselves. Thank you for watching, and I have Alien Romulus at a 4 out of 5 on my letterbox, which is in the description, along with my Discord and Patreon. Thank you so much to my top patrons Logan Farmer and Sarah Wandrie.